The international news on the hour, brought to you by Yuska Bank, Gibraltar. For all your investments and banking needs, go online, yuskabank.gi, or visit us at 76 Main Street, Gibraltar.
Just because we're living in Spain doesn't mean we don't occasionally want a change of scenery and diet in a beautiful part of the UK. Located in East Sussex is the historic town of Winchelsea, just 3 miles from Rye. The Lodge at Winchelsea is a perfect place to stay and an ideal base for exploring Hastings, Battlebodiam Castle and much, much more. Book online at thelodge@winchelsea.co.uk and we really look forward to welcoming you.
This is talkradioeurope.net, your voice in Europe. Why not check out our Listen Again and On Demand service?
59205 or go online to yuskabank.gi.
Tune into Steve Gilmore on talkradioeurope.net, your voice in Europe. Tonight with Lisa Grant.
Hello and welcome to the second hour of the show for this evening. I'm going to be joined by wealth manager and money manager Jonathan Davis during this hour of the show with his weekly economics clinic. As ever, if there are any questions that you would like to ask, he's always happy to take them on air on 951 036 026. That's 951 036 026. I'm sure we'll definitely be touching on the subject of David Cameron not getting involved with the brand new European treaty. We'll also be talking about the divide between the coalition government. Didn't we know that was going to happen eventually? How can you have two people of different parties in charge, quite honestly? I must admit myself, I did question it when it first happened, but you know, you hope for the best, don't you? I'm sure we'll be talking about that tonight and other topics to do with all things money during the course of this hour too. So as I said, if you do have any questions, 951 036 026 or alternatively email studio@talkradioeurope.com. I'll be taking a stroll through the papers as well and giving you headlines from home and away, and of course touching on some stories that have grabbed my attention too. All that to cram in before 9 o'clock tonight.
Lisa Grant, tonight on Talk Radio Europe.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. And may all your Christmases be white.
Gotta play it this time of year, haven't you? Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes?
Who's calling? Someone just called Mr. Meeks.
Oh, no, I think you've got the wrong number. Whoops. You come through to Talk Radio Europe. I think you've got the wrong number, darling. Perhaps you should dial again. But if you do want to get in touch and get the right number, it's 951 036 026. Now, of course, with Christmas just around the corner, presents, it's a bit of a worry, isn't it, when it comes to presents, quite honestly. Who are you going to buy for what and all this kind of business. If you're organised, you started getting your Christmas shopping done back in November, and I must admit, when I was in the UK, I did actually go online, and a certain shop, which I won't repeat the name of, used to get my business every single year because you could just click, 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 and then it got delivered. And I usually had my presents wrapped up and sorted by the end of November. I'm not that organised over here, and quite honestly, every single bit of help you can get is always, always gratefully received. Well, the fantastic Gadgetlandia has a special competition that may just be able to help you with that. There's a prize draw for Talk Radio Europe listeners. All you have to do is register on their website, Gadgetlandia.com. That's Gadgetlandia.com, for a chance to win any of the following prizes, all of which you could either keep for yourself or wrap them up and give them as Christmas presents. The first prize, we've got an Apple iPad 2, I should say. Second prize, an Apple Nano. Third prize, a mini DV camera. Fourth prize, a Gyro Apache remote control helicopter. A fifth prize, a portable vibration speaker, and a sixth prize of a shocking pen. Now, the draw will take place on Wednesday, the 21st of December, and all registrations do have to be in by 12 o'clock on that day. Winners will be notified by telephone, and the prizes will be dispatched on that day to ensure that winners receive their prizes before Christmas. How brilliant is that? Fabulous list of items there that you could turn into very nice gifts. Or if you fancy treating yourself, keep them. It's completely up to you. All you have to do is go on to Gadgetlandia.com. That's Gadgetlandia.com, and register yourself for that competition. Good luck, because you never know, you might just be a winner. Taking a look through the papers, and you may remember last week I had a couple of interviews where I was talking about space, and we particularly focused on Mars with Dr. Heather Cooper. Now, an article popped up in the papers that said a greater percentage of Mars is habitable than Earth, actually, says scientists who have made an overall study of temperature and pressure conditions on the red planet. This is looking more and more probable, isn't it, as the second place that we could possibly think to go to as a human race. Researchers from the Australian International University say that 3% of Mars could sustain life, while just 1% of Earth's volume contains life from the core to the upper atmosphere. However, the team say that most Earth-like organisms might need to retreat underground to survive on Mars. So you get good news and then you get bad news. Astrologist Charlie Winfrey has told the International News Agency that what we try to do is simply to make the most of the information that we have, so we could put it together and finally say that the big picture consists that yes, life could exist on Mars. And the simple answer is there is large regions on Mars that are compatible with terrestrial life. However, it's mostly underground. I don't know about you, but it does rather seem to me that this subject has got a longer way to go, which is what Dr. Cooper actually said. She said, you know, we are looking at it as a possible place to go, but there is so much work that needs to be done and so much investigation needs to be done. And then a week later this comes out and says, yeah, we can live there, but you'll have to be living underground. Yeah, can you imagine trying to sell property like that? No, I don't think so either.
Mrs. Jones know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. We meet every day at the same cafe, 6:30, and no one knows she'll be there. Holding hands, making all kinds of plans, while the jukebox plays a favorite song. Me and Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones. We got a thing going on. We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. We gotta be extra careful that we don't build our hopes up too high, 'cause she's got her own obligations, and so do I. Me and Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones.
Help the Rotary Club of San Pedro Alcantara raise money for their work with those in need in the area. Just take your old mobile phone, the one which has been lying around in a drawer or cupboard, to the International Pharmacy in San Pedro's Main Street, or Rosa's Tobacconist in the Avenida Constitucion, in Nueva Andalucia to Toby's Bar, and in Marbella, the shoe shop Calzado CS, below the Hotel San Cristobal. The San Pedro Rotary Club recycles these phones for cash. It's so simple, it does so much. And with your support, we can do more.
Talk Radio Europe, online, on mobile, around the world, and on FM in southern Spain. TalkRadioEurope.net, your voice in Europe.
If you're looking for the best apartments, villas and luxury properties on the beautiful Costa del Sol, visit dreamsoverseas.com. With a network of around 500 European real estate agents and mortgage brokers offering every type of resale property, new homes, new developments, bank repossessions and distressed sale bargains. Dreamsoverseas.com is the one-stop answer. So, look at what we have to offer. Visit our website, dreamsoverseas.com, or click on our banner at talkradioeurope.com.
TalkRadioEurope.net, your voice in Europe and around the world.
Christmas dining at the Marbella Club is nothing short of spectacular, with a menu of festive dishes that utterly surpass expectation. Christmas Day lunch is what tradition is all about. We start the day with canapé and cocktails, followed by a meticulously prepared 4-course gastronomic meal, including traditional Christmas turkey with bread sauce, fresh cranberry, roasted parsnips and potatoes, accompanied by wine recommended by our sommelier. Entertainment provided by soprano Julianne Hunter, singing our favourite Christmas carols and performing some of her famous arias. Enjoy the magic of Christmas Day on the Golden Mile for just €125 per person. Bookings on 952 822211.
If I don't get all this finished, I'm ruined. I need business cards, flyers, letterheads, envelopes, exhibition stands, displays, posters and signage, and it all needs to be top quality and fast. I need to go and see a designer, then find a sign man, then a printer who'll understand me. I'm fed up with all the running around. I have a deadline to meet. What am I going to do? I'll be fired. Ah!
The solution is simple. Call iPrint on 951 310 395 for Cabo Pino, Mijas Costa, or 952 906 121 for Nueva Andalusia. Or visit our showrooms. No fuss, no messing, no middlemen, saving you time and money. www.iprint.es.
From Marbella to Gibraltar on 91.9, this is Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. Tonight with Lisa Grant.
Welcome back. And now to a gentleman who, quite honestly, doesn't need any introduction, unless, of course, you haven't listened to this show before. Jonathan Davis, wealth manager and money manager, who comes in every single week. And we've actually christened your session now, haven't we? The Economic Clinic.
Indeed, or maybe you want to consider calling it the economic crisis.
Jonathan and his economic crisis. No, we don't want to talk about your private affairs, thank you very much. Hey, it's interesting to see the coalition government aren't getting on very well at the moment, are they?
Well, talk about inevitable.
Yes.
At some point in this 5-year government period, there was going to be some major rift between two, let's face it, very different parties. Mm-hmm. Although the leadership might be very similar, ultimately the membership of the parties are very, very different. And of course, it's all to do with Cameron saying no 9. I can't really think of other no's.
Is that not a zip nished?
You may say that. I couldn't possibly comment. And essentially being negative, of course, to 26 other European leaders. You know, a week after the event or so, I'm still trying to work out what on earth he's vetoed. We know certainly he's vetoed the new treaty, but I actually haven't been able to understand what his point was. And I've come to the conclusion, rightly or wrongly, that he walked out of that room and he probably said to himself, oh my goodness, what on earth have I done? Because I don't actually believe that he intended to play the veto card. The first leader of any European country in the decades of the EU, the first one to do it. I just can't believe that that's what his intention was.
Well, it's interesting you say that you don't think it was intentional, but I spoke to quite a few people about this when it was rumbling on and it was, you know, the vote was coming up, and there was a mixture, but a majority of people said that they thought Cameron would vote to opts out, I should say, because quite simply that, you know, we're not in the euro, you're not in the euro, and he's trying to look after and protect England as a whole, and to get thrown in even more into the European Union, they felt that he would be frightened of, so he would vote no, I'm not going to get involved.
Well, that's a fair point. You could well be right. But ultimately, by vetoing the treaty, he has zero power now in the EU. As far as I can see, there is not a single other country in the EU who will listen in any way, shape or form to now the United Kingdom. So I thought the whole point of us being in the EU is that although we're not going to join the euro, at least by being in the EU, because we're the third largest economy in the EU, we have influence. Well, I'll tell you what, we have zero influence now. We have less influence than Switzerland, and they're not even in the EU. That's the result of what happened on Friday morning.
Now, Tory MP John Barron has actually urged the PM to renegotiate with the EU. He says the relationship has to be grounded and it has to be established. But do you think they're actually going to let him, if he were to sort of, I don't know, send a post-it or an email to the head of the EU Congress and to basically say, actually, I've changed my mind, can we have a cup of tea and talk about this? Are they really likely to actually be interested?
I think they'd be very interested. I think they'd love to see a chap from the UK get down on his bended knees and say, oh, can I have my ball back, please, as it were, because I do actually want to play with you. I'm sure they'd be delighted. They'd be laughing their heads off, I'm sure. Whether or not it's going to happen, I don't know. what I actually believe, I truly believe, is that probably inadvertently the Prime Minister of the UK on Friday morning, late Thursday night, Friday morning, probably started the process of the United Kingdom leaving the EU. That's what I actually think he has created.
And what do you think his point of view is to be doing this? Would it be to, as he said, to protect England, the UK, and its interests?
Well, these guys always talk about protecting the nation. As far as I'm concerned, it was not about protecting the United Kingdom, because when you think about it, we have no protection. Practically all of our laws now come from Brussels. We are in many ways not a sovereign state. And to suggest that it's to help to protect the UK is disingenuous. It's all about protecting the City of London and his banker friends. And before anyone phones in, I hasten to say Labour had banker friends as well. In other words, there's no difference between the politicians. It's all about helping the city. As it happens, I don't actually see how this helps the city either, because by staying in the EU, I would have thought that Sarkozy is now going to, and his Brussels friends who lead the European Parliament, I think they're going to create so many anti-global finance rules and regulations now that, as I say, it can only mean that the UK will leave the EU again in order to help the city. So that's my view for what it's worth.
OK, let's turn our attention to the euro in itself. And for anyone who's actually in the process of wanting to change money because perhaps they're going back to the UK for Christmas, not going to get a great exchange rate according to the headlines today, are they?
Well, indeed, I've been reading that the euro has been falling, but because of certain statements by Barroso, the president of the EU, that the fall has actually slowed down. I read that in a couple of papers today, which is very curious because actually I'm looking right now at the dollar-euro chart, which from an investment point of view is probably the most important currency pair in the world, because certainly they're the two most widely used currencies in the world, and the euro fell off a cliff today. As it stands, I'm looking at it right now, it's 130.60, bearing in mind that only 2 or 3 days ago it was 134. Now, for a huge currency like the euro to lose 3 cents in 2 or 3 days, I can assure you that continues to validate my hypothesis that the euro is toast because of what's happening in the EU economy. It's being hammered. I'm not saying it's going to go in a straight line, but when you consider that earlier this year the euro was 148 against the dollar, it's now 130. That is a heck of a drop in the same year, and I can see a great deal further to come for the euro. And we don't actually know if, with the euro falling, it's naturally therefore going to fall also against sterling, because the UK is toast as well. So it may well be that even though the euro falls in the world basis, on a global basis, it doesn't actually fall particularly against sterling, although it's certainly weaker against sterling than it has been, but not by much.
What advice would you give for people who are actually in the plans of exchanging money for their trip over to the UK? What would you advise them?
Yes, I would say that on a big picture level, the euro is going to be much weaker than even it is today over the next few months, year, or maybe 18 months. Against sterling, well, it really is 6.5 a dozen, because the Bank of England is doing incredibly stupid things. They're printing money with abandon. So, as I've explained before on your show, when you create more of something, you devalue it. So they're creating more sterling, so sterling's devaluing on a global basis as well. Perhaps the answer is transfer half now and then transfer a half later on, and that way you hedge your bets.
Yeah, as you say, it's 50-50. Okay, let's move on to looking at Spain in particular at the moment. Situation with the banks over here, not looking too great.
Well, yeah, I mean, Santander is trying to sell off assets. I noticed it raised €1 billion by selling something in South America in the last week or so. Spanish banks are toast. They have got so many bad debts on their books to these property developers. I remind you that 5 years ago, Spain built more individual dwellings than Germany, France and the Netherlands combined. And that's with a population of 45 million, because there was just the biggest property boom in Europe. And as your listeners will know, we've had a lot of property booms in most of Europe. And Spain was just off the scale. So the banks who made these loans, they've called in all the loans because, of course, they are, as they say, not performing. In other words, the developers have gone bust. And they've got all these properties and all these bad loans in their books. That's the reason why Spain, as an economy, is toast, because its banking system has fallen in on itself, and it's being held up by the taxpayer. And I keep saying we need to stop bailing out these banks, because all it's doing is sucking money from the majority and giving it to the tiny minority. That's not the way to get out of recession.
You could say that rule of thumb could actually be applied to a lot of the countries in the EU now, couldn't you?
And that's why we're in a depression globally. For 23 years and counting, that's what Japan has been doing, bailing out their banks, taxing their people till kingdom come. So they're in depression. Japan, which used to be the second largest economy on the planet, is in depression and has been for over 2 decades. We in the EU, we in the UK, they in the US, we are in depression whilst they continue to bail out these banks.
Now, I got a question last night, actually, and I said I would refer it to you. The credit agencies, who's actually behind them and how do they make their decisions? There was a lady who rang up asking that question, and as I said, I said you'd be on this evening. She says that, she'd like to know who's behind the curtain, so to speak, when it comes to credit rating agencies.
Well, the most well-known agencies are Standard & Poor's, Fitch and Moody's, which are, of course, Wall Street. But there are credit reference agencies all around the world, some with more credibility than others. These three, Standard & Poor's, Fitch and Moody's, that everyone seems to quote, these are the guys that everyone listens to, which is crazy, because who are they? They are Wall Street. They are part of the Wall Street structure. They are paid by Wall Street to give themselves positive ratings. Can you believe it? And that's allowed within the rules. It's so true. These guys have got no credibility as far as I'm concerned. They gave AAA rating to the junk mortgages, the mortgage-backed securities, which brought down the American banking system. They gave AAA ratings to all these European banks, which are so decrepit. People are rushing to take their money out and put them into other areas. However, they have, of course, said recently that they are minded to downgrade every single country in Europe, apart from Greece, because Greece is already seen as a junk economy. So, give them their credit, pardon the pun, for once in a decade, they are actually saying something that we need to hear, and they're stopping pretending that, for example, Spain is a AAA rated country. Italy's AAA rated. Nothing could be further from reality.
Okay,
so they are minded to downgrade, and we shouldn't shoot the messenger on this occasion.
Okay, let's talk about the A ratings and the AA plus ratings. How is that actually all worked out? Because you see it in the papers, you see this country has been downgraded to this, this and this, and a couple of times I thought to myself, well, you know, first of all, who came up with the sliding scale, and also how's it worked out?
The ratings agencies themselves come up with a sliding scale. The better the rating, and the best is AAA, AAA.
Right.
It means that the ratings agency is saying to lenders, to these countries, look, if these guys are AAA, you can lend to them and you will be assured of getting your money back. If, however, they are more risky than some other countries, like, for example, Germany, which is probably just about the most financially secure country on the planet. Having said that, though, there aren't. It's a bad comparison because pretty well every country is a bad risk, but that's perhaps another story. If they start to become more and more risky, then they go AA, single A, B, C, and junk. And the lower down the ratings orders you go, the lenders say to those countries who want to borrow, sure, we'll lend you money, but it won't be at 3 or 4%, which is perhaps what we're lending to Germany. It'll be at 5% or 10%. Or in Greece's case right now, when you consider what the interest rate is that you or I can borrow at, maybe we can get a mortgage at 5 or 6%, Greece borrows today at 33%. That's what I call junk. I mean, that's the kind of interest rate that you get in a pawnbroker or something like that. But that is a Western democracy having to pay 33%. Italy is now paying over 7% to borrow over 10 years. Portugal's at 15%. Spain's over 7%. These countries are junk, but they're still AAA, but not for long.
How come they've managed to hold on to their AAA rating for as long as they have?
Because the ratings agencies have no credibility.
Okay.
These countries should be junk, every single one of them. They should have been junk for years. Anyone with any sense, any ounce of accountancy sense, knows that these countries cannot repay their debts. Therefore, they should be junk like Greece.
Okay, so let's put it round the other way. Say a country is declared to be junk. How can they look to the future to actually get their ratings back up and to improve the way that they are looked upon by the rest of the world?
Well, what the powers that be are saying to the likes of Greece, the way to achieve that is to cut public spending, increase taxes, and whatever you do, pay back your debts. Well, the reality is there aren't enough taxpayers, even if they paid tax in Greece, which everyone knows they basically don't pay tax, but there aren't enough taxpayers in Greece to pay the debts. That size of population, 5 million people or whatever it is, and it's 200 billion euros of debts. It's literally impossible. It cannot be done. So that's why I keep saying to you that the policies that governments are undergoing right across the EU, right across the world, which is higher taxes, lower public spending, and bailing out the banks, is a busted flush. It's not going to work. Instead, these countries should leave the euro. They should devalue. They should tell the banks where to go. We can't pay you. You shouldn't have lent it to us in the first place. You shouldn't have been loaning to us at 4% at the same rate that you were lending to Germany. I mean, it was obvious that they could never repay that money. However, that was the system, and as it stands, it still is the system. That's why these countries, including the UK, is in depression for, in my view, 20 or 30 years while they continue down this road.
OK, let's move on to another story that's making headlines in the papers today. And the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development said that all major economics are losing momentum while experts in the City of London slash their economic growth forecasts for Britain. And all of a sudden, everyone's talking about a double-dip recession.
And you know what? In passing, you hit the nail on the head. Quote, all of a sudden, unquote.
You've been saying it for a month, maybe even longer, actually.
Well, exactly. And do you know what? When we had the big recession in 2008, and then they came in with this massive borrowings and bailing out of banks, the world and his oyster, Gordon Brown and Ed Balls and his cohort said, we've saved the world. My view is nothing could be further from the truth. What they did was, for a while, they put an elastoplast on major organ failure. So they delayed the inevitable. Sure, it brought the stock market up for a couple of years, and there was some uplift in economic activity, but it didn't last. It lasted about a year and a half or so, from March 2009 till the end of last year. Since then, the stock market's done nothing. Since then, right across the EU, unemployment's up, and there are riots, and economic activity is down. In other words, they borrowed all this vast amount of money and gave it to a few tens of thousands of people. That is the reality as I see it. We're in depression. And these guys in the city, as you say, who all of a sudden think we're now in a recession, well, as far as I'm concerned, there were lots of us who said that we're in a depression, and for the sake of a year, not in depression, well, you know, it's a trampoline. Unfortunately, it's on a downward trend.
Taking a look at the FTSE 100 index, it said stocks that have rebounded after Spain bond auction, inflation 4.8%. What exactly does that mean?
Well, yeah, they're saying that Spain was able to borrow some money at a not particularly high interest rate. In other words, they got it through the markets. But Spain's interest rate on borrowing is on a rising trend. It might well have been 4% today as it was, but I think that's an aberration. The stock market, sure, it's up today. I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago that I foresaw what we call a Santa Claus rally in the stock market. The market is indeed up 5% from when I said that. So we'll see what happens over the next week until Christmas. But it doesn't change anything. The economy right across the EU is toast. The amount of debt in society, in companies, in governments is absolutely vast. And you cannot have economic growth weighed down by such level of debt. The other thing you asked about was inflation. UK's inflation has fallen slightly from 5.4% to 5.2%. Was that the figure you said?
Yes.
Yeah. In other words, over the last 12 months, the cost of living has not gone up as much as it did in the 12 months to last month. But still, the inflation rate is one of the highest in the world. Why does the UK have so much inflation? Because the Bank of England, in cahoots with governments, plural, continue to print money. So when they print money, they devalue our currency, sterling, like I believe the ECB will do sometime next year with Germany's acquiescence. And when you devalue a currency, you increase the cost of your imports, you increase the cost of living for every man and woman in the street, for every business trying to get going. Inflation kills. Bailing out banks does not kill. It does not help. It kills. We need to stop bailing out banks.
OK, we've got a call. Hold on a moment, Jonathan. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Jonathan. Hello, Lisa.
Hi.
My name's Sharon. Am I correct in thinking that, I'm probably not actually, but am I correct in thinking that by David Cameron walking out on this plan, that the city will still be subject to some kind of regulations? I think people think that the city will remain completely deregulated because he's walked out on this treaty. How does it work?
Jonathan?
Very good question, Sharon. So David Cameron has vetoed the treaty, which would have brought greater integration, political harmonisation, fiscal harmonisation across, really 27 countries. But David Cameron didn't want it because it would have meant more regulation for the City of London. And that's the point. British Prime Ministers cannot abide regulation of the City of London because they believe in their infinite stupidity and arrogance that what's good for the city is good for the country. Well, it's been proven time and time again that is not the case. The question is, does it mean that we're still subject to EU regulations? Well, the reality is there aren't that many regulations. It's a fallacy. If there were regulations of banking, we wouldn't have got into the situation of massive amounts of debts, bad debts, that we're in. But certainly, whilst we remain in the EU, I would imagine that Sarkozy in particular, as I said earlier, along with the Brussels bureaucrats, they're going to create an avalanche of rules and regulations which will hamper the City of London doing what it does. Actually, I don't see that particularly as a bad thing because the City of London has been running rampant and needs to be brought back to heel.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Perhaps I'll ask you next week. I've got another question.
That's okay, Sharon. We have time for another question now, if you'd like to.
We have.
Yes.
Thank you. My other question is, Jonathan, therefore, do you think we'd be better off coming out of Europe financially? Would it be better for us economically if we pulled out of Europe completely? I don't particularly want to go back and live there, but would it be better for the country financially, the UK?
Yeah. Well, the way I see it, actually, is the UK is in a particularly unique position in that so much of our economy is global finance. We have very little manufacturing. We are, in essence, almost, certainly geographically, we're like an offshore financial centre, offshore from the EU. And so much of our economy, such a high proportion, more than any country in the world, our country is global finance. So it doesn't really matter whether we're in the EU or out of the EU. What matters is what's happening to global finance, which will determine the state of the UK economy. And the answer is global finance is now in long-term decline, and it started being so about 3 years ago with the crash, with the economic crash when Lehman Brothers went down, AIG, the biggest insurance company in the world, went down, and thus they bailed out the banks, which I wish they had not done. Global finance is now in decline, thus the UK is in decline, apart from the fact that we've got more debts than practically any country in the world, and certainly more than any country in the EU.
Thank you. So by pulling out of Europe, it wouldn't make much difference to the economy?
I don't think it would, no.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jonathan. Cheers. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for your call, Sharon. Jonathan, as ever, absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you very, very much. Now, you are going to be joining me spasmodically over the Christmas season, aren't you?
Yes. I'll wear my little red hat with a white fluffy thing at the top, and I'll go ho, ho, ho.
You know what? I fully intend to come dressed up because I'm going to be here over the Christmas period, and I fully intend to come dressed up. If you can't do it this time of year, when can you do it?
Absolutely. And can we have more Christmas songs, please?
Absolutely. Jonathan, an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. I'll let you get back to your eggnog.
Nice. Take care.
Bye.
Help the Rotary Club of San Pedro Alcantara raise money for their work with those in need in the area. Just take your old mobile phone, the one which has been lying around in a drawer or cupboard, to the International Pharmacy in San Pedro's Main Street, or Rosa's Tobacconist in the Avenida Constitucion, in Nueva Andalucia to Toby's Bar, and in Marbella, the shoe shop Calzado CS, below the Hotel San Cristobal. The San Pedro Rotary Club recycles these phones for cash. It's so simple, it does so much. And with your support, we can do more.
Go all in at StanJames.com. Their mobile betting makes it easier than ever before. Visit StanJames.com on your iPhone or Android handset for instant sports betting. Bet with StanJames.com now and receive up to £150 in free bets when you join. It's the quickest, easiest sports betting and online gaming site, offering the best promotions and the best odds. Register at the casino, participate in weekly competitions and get £100 in bonuses. Terms and conditions apply. Go all in at StanJames.com.
I knew you'd settle out here eventually, son. Viva España! What are you doing?
Just on that UK and Spain website, getting myself sorted.
UK and Spain website?
Dad, you've been here 10 years.
What's this website for?
What isn't it for? It's for just about everything. Help, support and advice on all aspects of living in Spain.
Like what?
Well, everything. Healthcare and pensions for a start.
Listen to you. I'm the one who should be worrying about healthcare and pensions.
Exactly.
The UK and Spain website. For everything you need to know about living in Spain, go to ukandspain.fco.gov.uk.
TalkRadioEurope.net. Your voice in Europe. Lisa Grant.
She packed my bags last night, pre-flight. 0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then. I miss the earth so much, I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space on such a timeless flight. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rocket man, burning out his fuse out there at home. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rocket man, burning out his fuse out here alone. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as hell, and there's no one there to raise them if you did. And all the science I don't understand, it's just my job 5 days a week. A rocket man, a rocket man. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, no, And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time.
Elton John and his Rocket Man on Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. A couple of things to remind you about if you happen to be a homeowner. Now, if your property is actually in Marbella, your rates are going up. If you haven't already received notification of the new rateable value of your property, you will very soon. But don't let the new rateable value of your property in Marbella go unchecked. From 2012 onwards, your local rates and income tax for the next 20 years will be based on this, and you have 1 month to make a claim from receipt of notification. For professional help, contact Rafael Bogado Abogados on 952 82 30 85, who for a small fee may be able to save you a lot of money. That number again, 952 82 30 85. And something else, if you happen to be a homeowner as well, I want to remind you about Vergler's unique automatic opening door system. Listeners on the Costa del Sol can arrange an obligation visit to Villa Vergler in Marbella, where you can see how Vergler allows you to enjoy outdoor terraces and spaces throughout the autumn and the winter. Free consultations are also available in your home in Andalusia, Murcia, the Costa Blanca, Mallorca and Barcelona as well. And each opening roof comes with a 10-year guarantee and is maintenance free. If you'd like to find out more information, click on the Vergler banner on our website at allthews.talkradioeurope.com or go directly to vergler.es, spelt Vergola. .es. Little bit of information there if you happen to be a homeowner. Something that caught my eye in the papers today, which I have to say I thought was a really, really good idea, and thought to myself that I think other countries should actually do this as well. In the ongoing fight against cigarette butts on the streets of Granada, the Environmental Department of the City Hall is to hand out 10,000 pocket ashtrays. If this actually works, I think it's a brilliant idea. The new anti-smoking legislation has resulted in people smoking outside bars in the street, and many of them just leave their butts behind on the ground. And local kiosk owners have agreed to hand out free pocket ashtrays, which intend to stop the indiscriminate throwing away of butts on the public pathways. The City Hall has also made a call to the public for cooperation, in the idea. And a similar scheme some years ago resulted in a 30% reduction in the number of cigarettes in the streets in other parts of Spain as well. What a brilliant idea. I also think another idea is to actually have more designated smoking bins as well. You know, the ones that have the ashtrays in the top? They should be dotted all over the place as well. Of course, I know you have to think about fire, obviously, which is why there probably aren't that many around. But with all the legislation and regulations that are actually about, smokers are finding themselves standing out in the freezing cold, having to have a cigarette. Of course, the best option would be to give up, but a lot of people, I totally understand, don't want to. But if you want people to stick to the rules and regs when it comes to this kind of thing, as much help as the local government can actually dish out is probably a blessing when it comes to smokers standing out in the cold. I actually remember I used to work for a company in Gibraltar, and at any given time you could see people standing outside the building, okay, as far under the overhang as possible as they could get. And there was a non-existent overhang, quite honestly, but they used to ram themselves up against the wall in the pouring rain, trying to stay dry to have a cigarette. And I must admit, I remember thinking to myself, is it really worth it? I'm sure if you're a smoker, you'll ring me and say, yes, it is. I'm probably one of the worst people in the world to be talking about this. I am one of those people that used to smoke and doesn't anymore, haven't done for about 15 years. And people often say that someone who's given up smoking becomes the most annoying individual when they're talking about this. Well, if I am being annoying, quite honestly, I don't care. Do your lungs a favour and give up. Right, that's all I'm going to say. Keep those calls coming in on 951 036 026. That's 951 036 026. Taking us up to the news is Johnny Nash, and I Can See Clearly. I'll see you in a couple of minutes' time.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark
I've got a couple of seconds before we go to the news. A quick reminder of the number here if you'd like to get in touch, 951 036 026. I would love to hear from you this evening. See you in a minute.
On Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. Brought to you by Yuska Bank Gibraltar. The international news on the hour.
2 teenagers are among 3 dead and 123 people have been injured after a man threw grenades and opened fire in a crowded city square in Belgium. The gunman, named as 33-year-old local man Noureddin Amrani, also killed himself. Earlier, Liège prosecutor Daniel Reinders gave this update.
This man arrived on the Place Lambert. He got himself positioned on one of the rooftops. He fired and threw 3 grenades. We know this is absolutely certain.
One of the men accused of murdering Stephen Lawrence, Gary Dobson, says he's embarrassed about a video showing him and his co-defendant making racist comments. Mr. Dobson and David Norris both deny killing the teenager. Attempts to revitalise Britain's struggling high streets have been announced as it's revealed they now attract less than half of consumer spending. TV retail expert Mary Portas created an action plan to stem shop closures after being commissioned by the government. A mother and 2 sons whose bodies were found at their home near Leeds on Sunday suffered stab wounds. Claire Smith and her sons Ben and Aaron are thought to have been attacked by the boy's father, Richard Smith, who died of smoke inhalation. Scientists believe they're one step closer to finding an elusive subatomic particle which could help explain many mysteries of the universe. It's thought the Higgs boson forms the building blocks of all molecules. One of the physicists at the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, Rolf Hewer, says their experiments have shown them intriguing hints it exists.
We still need many more collisions next year in order to get a definite answer on the Shakespeare question on the Higgs, to be or not to be. But I think we have made extremely good progress.
And Scotland captain Darren Fletcher is to take an extended break from football for health reasons. The Manchester United midfielder has been suffering with a chronic inflammatory bowel condition. That's the latest. I'm Claire.
The international news on the hour, brought to you by Yuska Bank Gibraltar. For all your investments and banking needs, go online, yuskabank.gi, or visit us at 76 Main Street, Gibraltar.
Hi. Our little girl getting married. Doesn't seem possible, does it?
Well, she's 29. I'd had 3 kids by then.
Oh, a big day for me, though. Giving me daughter away at the altar.
I am looking forward to this trip back to the UK. Give us your passport.
Yeah, love.
Oh, my.
What?
Look at the expiry date.
Always make sure your passport is valid and your emergency contact details are up to date. If your passport isn't valid, you won't be able to fly. For more details, go to the UK and Spain website.
I don't believe this.
Oh, I didn't realise. I mean...
Sometimes, you know,